Your alumni love helping students and fellow graduates, but they simply don't have time to attend every event, answer every call, or learn yet another online platform. With Protopia, making an impact is easier than it's ever been before. Ever. There's no new app to sign up for or use in our already busy lives. Students, alumni, or even staff can quickly ask for advice or networking via a simple form, email, or text. Protopia's artificial intelligence searches the institution's existing alumni data to find the best experts that are the most likely to assist based on experience, availability, location, and other factors. Each matched alum receives a direct, blind email to ask them to help, giving alumni full control over if and how they want to respond, whether that's by email, call, or a virtual meeting. And if it's not a good time, Protopia's AI simply reaches out to the next alum until the question has been answered. The student receives advice right into her email inbox and is coached to engage the alum to grow her professional network. Finally, our rich dashboard lets staff follow along, view detailed engagement analytics, and access updated alumni data. Protopia. Simple for them, simple for you.
Hey everyone, and welcome to Alumless. Thank you so much for joining us. Today is Friday, December 20th, 2024. This is a special holiday edition of the show. I am joined by CMAC founder and CEO, Chris Marshall. What's going on, sir?
Hey, Ryan, how are you? Looking forward to it. We had a lot of people signing up for this one, so jump in on the chat. Tell us you're here.
Yeah, let us know you're here. We can see those comments here in our StreamYard interface. And have any questions, we're probably actually not going to answer them today. I got to be honest. It's a special holiday edition of the show. And normally
try.
I would say throw your question. What's that? Well, maybe
I think we should try.
I don't know. Should we be flexible? I guess we should try to be flexible.
But I tell you what, if there are really any good questions in there, I will go back and I will follow up via email and answer them to the individual. So
yeah, good plan. Well, you're very festively dressed. I could not find either red or green in my closet, but I'm glad you're representing the holidays. And it's so good for everybody for joining us. Well, on the show, as you know, we talk about engagement strategies and education advancement. Grid show in store for you today, a little bit different. We're going to be live the whole hour today, and our special guests are going to help us explore engagement from a festive angle, you might say. Today's show is modeled extremely loosely after the Charles Dickens classic, A Christmas Carol. We're going to explore the ghosts of engagement, past, present, and future on the show. We want to make sure to mention our fantastic sponsoring partners, Protopia and Alumni Q, for their support this year and into next year. Look at all the people on the chat chiming in from around the world. So good. Thank you for joining us. I love this little community we've created for the show, Chris, a couple hundred people. Amazingly, check out each of these episodes every time we publish one. So listen, I think it's fantastic. We're grateful for you. Happy holidays. But so Chris, Merry Christmas, right? Happy holidays to you and the Marshall clan. I missed you at the holiday dinner last weekend, the team dinner, but we'll get up to Bethlehem next year. I guess let's talk about the show, though. How did we end up where we are on today's show? How did we select this fantastic group of guests today?
Well, one, I want to point out Kim Infante is chatting in the group, on the LinkedIn stuff as Chris Marshall Advancement Consulting. That's Kim Infante suggesting that Ryan and Chris sing Christmas carols. It will not be happening. That is not a skill set that I possess.
Singing was not a skill I was ever granted. Yeah. My sister was a voice performance major in college. And wow. I got none of that. Isn't that amazing?
I have two brothers, older and younger, who both can sing and play instruments. I got none of it. Back to your question, though. We called in every favor and twisted arms and guilted a few people into joining us on the show. But we found people who we thought could talk about various topics, and we thought it would be fun to try this out. As our regular listeners know, we bring in one guest, and they're with us the whole time, and we create the podcast from there. But we're going to stay live the whole hour, and we're going to bring in 6 different guests. And you'll see Ryan's got this great idea of how we're going to do it with this Christmas Carol format. So I'm excited about it. And thanks in advance to the folks who all agreed with an arm twist to do this. I really, really appreciate it.
Very much a last minute arm twist. Okay, we've got 3 segments for today's show. We're going to start with, of course, the Ghosts of Christmas Past. We're excited to have Matt Winston, who is the executive director for alumni engagement at Binghamton University, on the show today. And we're also joined by Lyndsey Crum, who is assistant vice president for alumni relations at Wayne State University. 2 of my very favorite people. How's it going, you guys?
It's great because we're both in green. Matt and I color coordinated, but he's got the better hat.
That's true. You guys both have an advantage on the green, right, with the school color thing. So that's awesome.
I may have worn green Christmas jammies at our staff holiday party earlier this week.
Wow. That's definitely very festive, indeed. But so Matt, in A Christmas Carol, Ebenezer Scrooge goes back in time, led by the ghost of Christmas past, and he realizes that his focus might not have been in the right areas of his life. He was too focused on money. He screwed up some of those relationships that he had. Scrooge realizes that the man he's become, he doesn't like it, not a good look. So let's start here. When you go deep, take an introspective look at our field, where do you see us having maybe the wrong focus over the last few years? And what maybe have we left opportunities on the table?
That's a great question. Let me first say happy holidays to everyone. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, and of course my favorite Festivus. Happy Festivus to everyone.
To the rest of us.
To the rest of us. That's right. That's a cool question, and maybe the answer's in the question. And this is probably an old staple for people in our business. I think that for years we started off, so at least our alums think that we're so focused on the money piece and less on the other stuff. There might be a little bit of truth to that, but actually I would flip it. I would say that there are still a lot of shops out there who are so focused on this sort of separation of their fundraisers and their fundraisers. And I think that will, we need everyone to really believe that, it's not fundraising or fundraising. It's this holistic relationship with our audiences, with our graduates. And that relationship needs to be born out of how the alum connects with the university and not necessarily sort of what we really want out of them. That really strikes me as something that we're all going to have to get better with going forward, particularly as more alums are going to want us to be connected with their careers. More alums are going to want us connected with what they do in their personal lives. It's not just about the let's just get to know each other and have fun. It's about that sort of holistic experience where it's important to them.
Chris Marshall, off the script, do you feel like it's a scenario whereby it was kind of like, 20 years ago, it was, you only hear from us when you're fundraising. And then we just spent the last while sort of too separated. That is the engagement alumni side of the shop. And now we're kind of coming back together again. Or is that sort of paraphrasing what Matt means there?
Yeah, well, for one, almost every single one of our clients will tell you that they hear from their alums that the alums refrain, if you will, is the only time we ever hear from you is when you ask me for money. That hasn't changed, right? Almost every institution, every client I've worked with will still say that. But in terms of how we're organized internally, and I you've heard me say this if you were a listener on this show, I talk about the posture, right? How far do we lean in? If we're an alumni engagement side, do we lean in and embrace the fact that one of the outcomes of good engagement is fundraising? The answer is an undeniable yes, in my opinion. And if you lean away from that reality, as Matt described, and I saw Lyndsey, you nodding your head, there are places out there shops who just believe they're separate. I think when I started 20 plus years ago, 24 years ago now in the business, there was a divide. There was a clear difference. And I think over the time, we've moved more towards integration, alignment, probably a better word. Certainly collaboration. So I think we're learning from that, but I still see, as Matt pointed out, there's many shops out there that still have that separate lean away posture, that separateness that comes from it. So yeah.
Yeah. It's still an ongoing topic. We're still moving along a continuum as far as sort of integration goes. And I think it's one of the challenges we face, but we could have done something about it if we were a little more focused on that integration a few years ago. So I think that's a great way to think about perhaps a missing of the mark.
There are some shops out there, Ryan and Matt and Lyndsey knows too, that take, not pride probably is the right word. They're okay with the fact that they are separate, and they have resourced and set up their program in such a way that they're going to maintain that. They treat all alumni the same. It won't be a matter whether you're a donor or not, kind of thing. And that's sort of how they approach the business. And some purists feel that's the right way to do this. And I get that. And we probably have some listeners on the call right now who believe the way. I'm going to throw one out to Lyndsey, unless you want to keep going down our unscripted path.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Back to the script. So
back
Lyndsey,
to the script. I was really just following our timestamps, I was kind of extending, elongating just for a moment. You know how it goes.
You got the producer going like this in the background,
right? I was elongating a little bit there.
Oop, I hit a button on my screen. Hope I don't go. There we go. All right. So for Lyndsey, sort of looking back at some of sort of what I would call fundamental truths, what would you point to as lessons learned that you think stick today, that still are around? And let's go a little more recent and say pandemic, right? 5-6 years ago, we were going through this terrible pandemic. What did we learn from that? Did any of that stick around? Fire away.
Well, I think a fundamental truth is we're in the people business, and kind of tying into Matt's response in the start of the conversation, when we value people holistically, I think we do a better job. And when we value the different contributions, not just of our alums, but of our staff and our teams, whether they are integrated, whether they're specialists, whatever that may be, I think we do a better job. And because we're in the people business, I don't think we should divorce our understanding of the people we work alongside. And I think what the pandemic, it's been, 5 years now that the news was really hitting when we think about that timestamp. We learned to treat our colleagues with the same holistic understanding and respect that they deserve. And when we did that, I think we did a better job of treating our alumni with the holistic respect that they deserve in whatever way they are desiring of giving back and being involved in investing. Right. We taught ourselves, because we had to, alongside each other, work differently and respect that we would have kids running in the background of a Teams meeting, or we had layoffs. And when we saw our alumni having layoffs and needing career support, or offers rescinded from the class of 2020, we saw that with our campus colleagues. And I think the pandemic helped us understand that because we're fundamentally in the business of people, if we don't take care of the people who we work alongside, we're not going to be able to take care of the people that we're privileged to work with in our alumni community.
Yeah, such good points there. And you reminded me of a funny story. It was right at the beginning of the pandemic. My now 14-year-old, so he was 9-year-old, came home from school, and he had a habit of walking in the door from school and undressing as he made his way up the stairs. But he got to the outside of my office. He was in his underwear, jumped in behind the screen, started doing jumping jacks in his underwear during a sales pitch with a brand new client.
Okay, did you land the client though?
Did you make that sale?
We actually did get that client. I think it was a little bit because of the charm and reality of human.
Well, there was a lot of that though, wasn't there? There was commercials. I remember very like memes and shorts on Instagram and TikTok that were sort of about that, the way the family and work have sort of been blended together during COVID. And I also think about this word that we used all the time, which was hybrid. Right. Yeah. We were talking about how our work would remain hybrid, and how we ought to be thinking of it in those terms. It felt like, for a good 2 years now, we were using that term. We never talk about hybrid anything, only in the space of not in the programming space. Right. We talk about it in the, like, maybe when you're coming to the office and when you're not. But I feel like we learned that hybrid was supposed to be good, but maybe we didn't. Maybe it actually doesn't work out that well.
I think it's harder. I think, Lyndsey, Matt, what do you think? Have your shops maintained any form of what we did during the pandemic?
So as you all know, but maybe not all the listeners know, I'm new to Wayne State, just 4
Right.
months.
Yeah.
I came
Tell
from
people about your journey. So you were at Northern
university.
Colorado when we
Yeah.
first had you on, and now you're at Wayne
Correct.
State. Yeah. Right.
Correct. And so I don't know how my colleagues at Wayne State experienced the pandemic, but we do still have a hybrid schedule for our team members where they can work in the office 3 days a week, and then 2 days hybrid or remote. And our team is also spread out across the campus. So we have alumni team members that are in our school college buildings, as well as some in the Central Alumni House. And I think what's important to think about, and this back to that holistic understanding, is we need to take people as they show and come up and recognize that there isn't a perfect setup for all of us, and that where we work, how we work may look a little bit different. And how we build a team culture around that is going to look unique to each place, just as how we engage our alumni in the ways that are relevant to them is going to look unique with each of our alumni communities. And I think one of the things that I was really pleased about in my last institution, coming out of the pandemic and accepting hybrid, is the way that we worked with board members who were not in our home community. Prior to going remote during the pandemic, we really struggled with normalizing engagement with our volunteer leaders who were not in our home community, and valuing what they could provide in terms of their time and expertise. And that looked different by the nature of how they connected the modality. I think when we realized that everybody had to go into that hybrid or remote environment, we started to say, oh, what could we do to make engagement be more meaningful now that we've experienced the challenges of engaging with our colleagues and our volunteers in a remote space? I think that introspection helped us hopefully do our jobs better, be better teammates and colleagues, and work better with our volunteers, because we started to understand what it was like for them when they couldn't be in the same building, on the same campus, in the same home community at the same time. It helped us be more flexible and adaptable.
Yeah, Matt, how about at Binghamton? You weren't there at Binghamton during the pandemic, correct? You were.
Yeah. My situation is similar to Lyndsey's. I arrived shortly after all the turmoil. But what I inherited was an amazing team of professionals. But I'll say this: I inherited an amazing team of younger professionals. I'll say everyone's younger than me, and what it meant for me to observe is that they had families. They had young families and things that they needed to take care of, and so the hybrid sort of schedule really worked and still works for us. I hope I'm very understanding of that. I know that there are times when they not necessarily can and should be here right here in the office. But I'll tell you what, everyone still gets their work done. And I think that, what this all sort of exposed was that we are in a knowledge-based environment versus a widget producing environment. And when you're producing widgets, you got to be there for 8 hours or from time to time and clock in and do this kind of thing. But you can be intellectual 24 hours a day in whatever your space is. And so if that means that you're home and all of a sudden you've got some time to do some work, and I think that really works for us. And I want to piggyback on the other thing Lyndsey was talking about. Many of our volunteers, particularly with our board, very New York centric, very New York based. And what I've been really amazed with and impressed with is that the board members realized that they can diversify their reach by saying, we don't all have to come from upstate New York to be a part of this experience. And so they are actually very active and very vocal about making sure that we are looking at and recruiting talent from places that aren't, within a 50-mile radius.
I'm going to pose another question, Ryan. Keep us on schedule here. I'll ask Matt, Lyndsey to give us in kind of a 30-second shot clock version of this. So in the Christmas Carol, Scrooge is given a view back into his past at some consequential moments of learning or things that happened in his life. If you go back and think about your time in the advancement profession, what's the consequential learning moment that you point to? Let's start with Lyndsey.
Matt.
Right, we're gonna go. What are we gonna do? Rock, paper, scissors?
Rock, paper, scissors. I picked Lyndsey. Ryan picked Matt, but we're gonna go Lyndsey.
Lyndsey, you go first.
Okay. Well, I know that I've talked about this with you all before. I really believe advancement is a team sport. And Chris, as a former coach, I know that you get that. And And when I realized that this is a team sport and how I could apply my expertise and time alongside my colleagues who have other specializations, whether that's major gifts, plan giving, whatever it may be, that's when I really started to see great things happen and strong collaborations happen. I think early in my career, when I focused on, well, here's what my job description says, and so I'm just going to run forward, headstrong and do what is within my direct line of responsibility, I left people behind. And there is a moment early in my career that I point to where I'm like, wow, did I make a mistake in that?
I'm with you. Yeah.
And ever since that moment, and thank goodness it happened early in my career, ever since that moment, I have approached my work differently, and I focused on understanding the work of my colleagues and how my work ties to them. And you get so much further, so much faster when you work alongside your colleagues and recognize this truly is a team sport.
Yeah.
Not just your immediate team either, right? Like the campus wide team.
Yeah.
If I could do one thing myself, answering the question, Chris, which is if I could go back and do something, learn a lesson, I would not just focus on my team. I would really focus on recruiting and engaging ongoing with more campus partners, right? To sort of,
you see it when you get into consulting role, you see that gap when they exist.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Matt, what do you think?
Yeah, mine was not my monumental event was, gosh, it was 20 years ago. So you guys know I'm an old case guy. One of my old case District 3 buddies, Kevin Russell, down in Belhaven in Mississippi, he used to do this presentation at case conferences. And as part of the presentation, he would show this clip from, I think it was the old Hoosiers movie. And the clip was basically the coach, some parents or some players were acting up, and the coach was about to address the situation. And one of the team parents came along and said, I got it, I'll take care of it. And what that really drove home for me, and it was the purpose of it, was empowering volunteers to do the work. And that really struck with me that we need to, a big part of the work that we need to do is to give our volunteers, our board members, anyone who's connected to the university, give them the opportunity to stand in and do the work on our behalf. It means something to them, and it definitely means something to the university, and they are a better mouthpiece for the message that you're trying to send. So that has always struck with me, and I carry that through everything I try to do in this work.
I could see that with your board too. You behave that way, Matt. I haven't met Lyndsey, your crew yet, but Matt, I've met your team, phenomenal team of staff. I agree with you on that, but also met your board, and you've given them that empowered ability to do their work. So kudos.
There's a bunch of listeners who are like, bah humbug, screw my board.
It's such a difference though, Matt. I love that you shared that. I can think of instances where a board member has stepped in, whether in an online chat or thread, or in a conversation. And when you're not the paid administrator, the weight of your voice carries just so much further, and it's so much heavier, and it sticks in a way that a paid administrator, whether that's your alma mater or not, just doesn't. And I completely agree, empowering our board members and volunteer leaders. And it does matter to them. They take great pride and meaning in that. So thank you for sharing that.
Yeah. Good stuff.
Well, I give credit to my buddy Kevin down in Mississippi. He really found a way to sort of focus that and teach that lesson. It was very powerful to me.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, Matt, Winston, Lyndsey, Crum, thank you so much for helping us with our Ghost of the Christmas Past, and for being flexible on your Friday before the holiday starts.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. We're so glad
Thank
you could.
you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
All right. See ya. All right. Well, that was awesome. So, of course, we are going to forge ahead to Ghosts of Christmas.
We're not far off. We're only a couple minutes behind our.
Yeah, no, I think we're good. And I had some buffer time in there a little bit, I feel like we're going to be in good shape. But in A Christmas Carol, we have Scrooge visiting Bob Cratchit's home for a holiday party. And he has an unfortunately disappointing time where he sees, Tiny Tim all laid out and not doing good. And then at the end of sees a bit, his Bob's kids are a bit sickly. Scrooge realizes he's not paying his loyal employee enough, right? There's a lot of talk about, in terms of investing in today's alumni and constituent engagement programs on the staff side. So I want to give Bob Cratchit and segment 2 provide us the opportunity to think a little bit more about what alumni leaders are doing to ensure their teams are operating at a high level. So glad to have Nicole Kempton. She is vice president and consultant at CMAC. Very festive looking. Both of our segment 2 guests. Very segment, very holiday.
You guys are bringing it. You guys coordinated. Yeah. Well done.
Well done indeed.
I'm excited I couldn't let Matt be the only one who wore a Christmas getup. So.
Matt James is vice president for alumni at Marshall University Foundation. So good to have you, Matt. Thank you very much for joining us. Let's start with you. So what's something about our field that screams out, we need to change course right now before it's too late?
Well, hi, everybody. Really nice to meet you all. I am still new to the development world. So just some background for you all, for me. I've been in this role for about 2 years. So I know Matt, who was just on the call here, he said he's an old case guy. I'm a new case guy. So my perspective is going to be a little different. When I came into this role, I actually took over for a staff that used to be 3 people, but it was just me for about 1.5 years. Wow. So I'm also a Marshall guy, right? So I'm a former student body president. I have the student experience, and I'm a former student affairs administrator here. I give you that context because something that screamed out to me was the fact that at Marshall, at least, all of our touch points with our new graduates, it was all about money. And so I totally agree. We should work seamlessly with our annual fund office, with our development staff. But if you're working on a small campus or with a lean staff like we are here at Marshall, we're a 2-person team. We serve 110,000 alumni. We need to have a way to form relationships, right? And so when we first meet our graduates at Countdown to Commencement, they've just paid for their diploma. Some of them have just paid for their cap and gown. Some of them still have a bill with the university. And so it's just not the best way to start that relationship, right? To put our hand out and say, join the Alumni Association. So we actually were intentional about our staff. We hired last year's student body president. His name is Walker Tatum. I think he was on one of these calls recently. Yeah. His energy is really high. So both of us are new to development, but we understand relationship building. And so what we're trying to figure out is, how do we bring more young alums under the tent? How do we start building the culture of philanthropy while they're still students? So that way, when they graduate, we've already got them under the tent. We're getting them in the donor cycle. And so that relationship building is really something I think we've got to focus our attention on future, not just the now. The pandemic has forced us to start thinking about day to day, getting to the next event, but we've got to start thinking about the future.
Yeah, sorry, Chris, I took your question.
All right, keep going. You go. Back on script.
Stomped right all over the script there. But Nicole, good to see you. Thanks for joining us from overseas on your, quitting time over in London, I would think.
Yeah.
But so thanks for making this the last thing before your holiday vacation. We're approaching the end of the year. Let's talk a little bit about your set of experiences working with educational organizations, different parts of the globe. What are some key issues that differentiate alumni programs in the U.S. versus elsewhere?
Well, I think, one of the things that we've talked about before, Ryan, is just that I think I'm based in the UK and, been talking mostly with institutions in the UK and mainland Europe, but I'm also a graduate of a university in Asia, University of Hong Kong, and have some life experience there too to draw on. And I think that one of the things that I've noticed is that I guess advancement has been professionalized quite substantially in the last 10, 20 years in outside of the US, and they might be transitioning from an all volunteer led or primarily faculty driven program to professionally managed program run by staff. And so in a lot of cases, just like Matt's shop, they're kind of starting with quite lean, lean staff, low on resources. And so you have to be really, really strategic about what you're doing. And I think that one of the things that keeps coming up in my conversations here is the challenge of articulating the value of alumni engagement to the institution. So historically, universities in the UK and Europe have not necessarily had the fundraising pressures that American universities have had. And so now they're starting to have some of that pressure. And because of public funding drying up in some cases, and also because the importance of alumni networks and the importance of, or I should say, constituent networks is only increasing. It's not going down, right? So I think we're seeing a lot more institutions focus on volunteerism in all of its forms. And I would just point out one of our recent clients, the London School of Economics. They had a volunteer goal within their campaign that they launched a few years ago, and they've really dramatically increased volunteerism across the campus. Working with campus partners, and so I think that we're seeing that more and more here, and I think it's fundamentally the same issue that our guests have already discussed. Making sure that we're treating the constituent experience as a holistic one, and focusing on really understanding the lives of our constituents. What's important to them, what do they need, are we going to them with our arms full or our hands out, and just really thinking about what we can do for them, which naturally will translate into what can they do for us, right?
Nicole, I heard you use that expression back when we were working together near Duke, and the arms coming to our alumni with our arms full versus our hands out it's a really subtle thing, but it's a huge difference. And what was the genesis of that at Duke? Was that part of the activating the global network? Was that where that came from?
Yeah, I think we started talking about it before that, because kind of just what everybody here has already talked about. We wanted to make sure that we were, keeping people engaged, making sure that, in particular, we had some volunteer opportunities outside of board experiences, right? Because it's kind of like you graduate and then, blah, 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 board membership, right? Like there was sort of not a whole lot in between.
Right.
And so,
yada, yada, yada in the middle there.
yeah, exactly. And kind of thinking about, okay, well, what are people's lives like? Oh, well, actually, they're probably in the first 5 years after graduation, they're probably going through a lot of transitions, multiple career pivots, maybe additional schooling, getting married, maybe having babies. There's just a whole lot going on there, and their needs are changing dramatically with each of those pivots, right? And like, where is Duke in each of those pivots?
How can we help?
And how can we help? Right, exactly. We've got all these, this fantastic amount of human capital sitting there ready to help. How are we activating that, right? And so, so I think that was kind of the genesis of that. But I will say that, in focus group research and everything, like people definitely make the connection, right? If they're helped by an alum, for example, if they have an alum who advises them on their career path, or they access lifelong learning resources that were really helpful to them, they make the connection, they then want to pay it forward, right? And so I think that's something that we've always in our profession kind of discounted, that people will actually sort of derive value and then decide to add value in return. But it's definitely, I think a lot of people really, they understand that on a fundamental level, that, they're part of a community. And when you're part of a community, sometimes you're going to need that community to help you, and sometimes you're going to be the one helping that community and giving back. So, it's a natural cycle.
Can we bring it back to Matt and ask? Go ahead. You have a follow up. Go ahead.
Wait, sometimes it's the simple gestures too to build that community. And again, we're building this from the ground up. So you'll see, giving t-shirts out is not a unique idea, but we tried to put a unique spin on this. So at commencement, again, instead of asking for a gift, our first touch point, again, when they cross that stage, here's a unique shirt that was designed by one of the graduates. It's a logo that can only be given to a graduate that crosses that stage. They can't purchase it, at Glenn's, one of our sponsors that I'm wearing today. And then again, when we make that first ask, maybe it's a year later, for $25.25, their first impression isn't just they asked us for money. And again, we were just in the soccer Final Four, right? So we came up just short in the national championship, but we decided to just purchase. And again, it's little things, 300 Chick-fil-A sandwiches. Our first touch point, again, with the community, with our sports teams, with our student athletes, with our rising seniors. Hey, that's the alumni office. They're giving us free food. They're here, they're present. So again, building that community, I agree with Nicole, that's super important. And then again, they're in the donor cycle. So we start thinking about how do we cultivate them further.
And Matt, you have a new, vice president for advancement, but it's also CEO, president of your foundation, right? And Nico Karagosian, someone we've known for a while. And with Nico in the helm now, you have your big team of two going into 25. What are you thinking? What's the plan? I mean, is there growth mode? What's the next step in the journey for you guys at Marshall?
Yeah, so absolutely. First of all, we are going to grow, but we also believe in doing things as lean as possible because we have a huge campaign we're embarking on. It's Marshall for All, Marshall Forever. So we've got to raise $300 million. And that's just the bottom line to help all of our students. This is our goal. In 15 years, all of our students can graduate debt-free and with jobs waiting on them. And so that's an ambitious goal our president has for us. But if we tap into our alumni, we know we can do that. Nico's an absolute rock star. What we did not have at Marshall, again, was someone who understood our field in terms of the case engagement metrics. All we've ever tracked, all we've ever valued at Marshall was donorship. And while that's important, and that is why our foundation exists, the alumni engagement piece was just missing. And so Nico is helping us as we move into the next year. We're going to start tracking what we do. I think it's important if you don't have a thought partner or someone you connect with in our field. I've been able to do that with Jen at Ohio University. It's someone that Nico used to work with. And she just told me, you don't have to, if you keep waiting to start tracking things, you're going to keep waiting. And so we're just starting to track. We're starting to work with our data team, right? To start figuring out that familiar. The year, we might not win anything, but we're going to start submitting for awards so we can start at least getting feedback on what we're doing. So that's what we're focused on. Lastly, too, I like themes, right? And so we're going to be focused on our 3 ships, SHIPS, moving into the next year. Membership, that's low-hanging fruit. How do we capture folks my age, maybe middle-aged alumni that we've lost touch with through ways beyond just donorship, even though it's a lot easier with folks at our point in our career. Mentorship, we're part of the academic advising model now at Marshall. That means if you're a rising senior, you have the option to connect with an alumni mentor, talk about volunteer engagement. We have a really thirsty alumni base. They want to get involved. They just don't know how. And then our last ship is sponsorship. And I think the friend raising piece falls on us. Most importantly, we're the ambassadors for the community. Right after this, I'm actually going to go work a shift at our local sporting goods store because they're our #1 sponsor. The way that we help the development staff, at least for our team, we're a 2-person staff. How do we get them to value volunteer engagement, alumni engagement? It's for them to also see that we're trying to pull money in too. So the more money, the private support we can bring in, that's less money that we need that pulls away from student scholarships. So just seeing how we all operate in that cycle, that's kind of, it's a lot that we're headed into for 2025. But again, if I could say one thing, it's just start tracking what you're doing.
Yeah. Good stuff, Matt. Thank you so much.
Thanks for joining us, Matt. All right, Nicole. So I've been teasing a big announcement on our promotional materials, and so let's reveal the big news for CMAC and for Alumless. What's happening next month?
Oh, well, we're starting a new series within the Alumless podcast empire called Alumless World.
CMAC Audio Empire.
Yeah. Do you like what I did there? I built us into an empire and also announced the new series called Alumless World. Ryan and I are going to be co-hosting, and we're going to be chatting with advancement leaders outside of the US. So if you have someone that you think we should be talking to, we would love to hear from you. And we've got a couple of fantastic guests lined up to kick us off in January 2025. And I'm really excited because I think that we have a lot of Alumless listeners already tuning in from outside of the US, but as I already kind of talked about, sometimes the needs and the issues are just a little bit different or a lot different. And I think it's going to be great to hear what's on the minds of our colleagues across the globe. So really looking forward to it.
Is Maria Gallo on your list?
She first. She's actually our first guest.
I had a feeling.
So Maria Gallo, author of The Alumni Way, is going to be our very first guest. So,
and then we've got Mandy McFarland, who's the leader from Educate Plus, which is a nonprofit over in based in Australia. So we're super excited. We're going to talk a lot about independent schools as well. I think it's a huge source of affinity in different places outside the United States. So we're going to touch a bit more on independent schools, international schools as we forge ahead. So end of January, the 24th. We are not going to be live each episode. We're going to pre-record our episodes, but we are going to publish them in the off week at this 11:30 hour, but it's going to be 11:30 in London when we publish these. So Friday morning here on the East Coast of the US, you'll have them when you wake up. And then hopefully we can get a live chat going sort of afternoon in London time. So yeah,
I finally get something on my time zone, so I'm excited.
That's true. The interview with Mandy McFarland's already I'm recording that at 6:30 a.m. my time.
Yeah.
So it's fun to coordinate global times for a podcast, but we're going to give it a shot. Not a shot. But all right, Nicole, Kempton, have a great holiday. Matt,
Thank
James,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you both. Matt, good to have you on. Nicole, great to see you. Have a great holiday.
All right.
Nicole, that's awesome. Thank you, guys.
See ya.
All right. And we are going to move into segment 3, which I'm excited about. We are going to go to Ghost of Christmas Future, which unfortunately for Ebenezer Scrooge does not look very good. His vantage point there is unfortunately that life is not good for the people around him and for himself. People don't really like Ebenezer Scrooge. And he sees his own death and people don't really care about it, right? So Scrooge, he vows to do things differently. And I'm going to welcome to the show 2 of our favorite people. Gina Yazzolino is Assistant Vice President for Constituent Engagement at the University of Portland, and Malayne Sharp is Director of Alumni Relations at Southeastern Louisiana University. How's it going, ladies? Good to see you.
Good morning. Happy holidays.
Yeah,
Malayne, got the sweater on. I love it.
Y'all, I had to. Everybody was so festive. I was like, how am I on a holiday podcast and I have a different, not even a holiday sweater? So I did a quick
colors on, Gina. You look great. You're good.
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm repping UP colors today because I want to give a big shout out to our women's basketball team, who's only one of 9 teams in the country that are 12-0 undefeated right now.
Nice.
So we're all in purple today for the Lady Pilots.
It's going to be a busy March maybe for the University of Portland team.
Yep.
Awesome. So Gina, we're going to kick things off with you. And let's talk a little bit about doing things differently. As engagement pros, we're trying to ensure that the future is bright. And what we're doing now is leaving a positive, lasting impact. So where should our attention be if that's what we're trying to do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think a lot of our previous guests have spoken very eloquently about the challenges and the successes that we've all experienced as alumni engagement professionals in the last 20 years and in the last 5 years with COVID and declining enrollments and all the different things that are currently hot button issues on campuses. I think one of the things that we can do looking for the future as engagement professionals is not shy away from how we're engaging with our students on campus. We are looking at another new generation and technology and how they want to show up and they've experienced different things. And so one thing we're really talking about here at University of Portland is how the alumni engagement space can actually partner very closely with our campus partners such as Res Life, and we have campus ministry because we're a Holy Cross institution, and student affairs and student activities, and really show those students, keep them engaged for 4 years by interacting and mingling with alumni consistently, We have a smaller alumni base. So we're currently at 44,000. So we have that luxury of predominantly, we're very regional because we are the University of Portland. And so very much our alums live up and down the West Coast. And so being able to bring people back here beyond just athletic events, beyond reunion, beyond family weekends. My division also oversees parent engagement as well. So we have that extra piece added in to provide this robust programming initiatives to get students engaged. And so looking to the future and having different decades of alums understand what our students are doing right now and having them connect, because at the end of the day, we're all University of Portland pilots. And we all have a tight community, and we've all experienced the campus and the values and the mission in different ways, but also in the same ways. So how do we think about keeping those initiatives and programming bright and fresh? How are they relevant? All of those types of things. The other thing that we have personally for like UP that we're really focused on right now as well is we're going to be hitting a huge milestone in 2026. It will be our 125th anniversary of the founding of the school. And so that's going to take on a whole new life in itself on how we not only in the event space, but how are we globally connecting across the all the regions and where our alumni are at, and not only where are they living, but what do they need right at this moment in time? Do they want to do mentorship? Do they want to be volunteers? We're currently in the second day of a 3-day food drive here on campus to serve our underserved community out here near the university. So, or do they want to come to reunion? Do they want to come to a speaker series? What are all the different ways that we can look at what we're doing and how we can give an opportunity to offer something to everyone to engage back to us?
Good stuff. You got a lot cooking there.
We
Gina,
do.
so we have the Pacific Northwest in Gina, and we're going to go all the way down to the south in Tangipahoa Parish, just north of New Orleans in Louisiana, and bringing Malayne Sharp. Thank you, Malayne, for doing this. And you've had the, I was going to say pleasure, but it's probably more of a burden of having to work with me for the past year through a whole bunch of different projects along the way. And what are you guys doing there to kind of get yourselves ready for the next 5-10 years, your future roadmap and plan? What have you been thinking about? Where are you headed? And talk through some of your priorities.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess our biggest step right when I got there was bringing you on and having you work with us over the last year. And so our main project together was creating a strategic plan. And so over the last year, we've worked on that. We identified, 3 priorities that we wanted to focus on, which was early engagement to include, the student life cycle, as well as our affinity groups. And then also what we labeled generational engagement, which is just kind of meeting people where they're at in their life stage. And so we really took the time to identify who are the groups that we are engaged with, who are we not, who are we kind of wanting to try to bring back into the fold. And so we really evaluated all of our current programming and tried to determine what was working, what wasn't, what could we potentially tweak to kind of just meet the needs of our alums and meet folks where they're at. And so we're trying to be much more intentional about what we're trying to bring to our alumni base. And so, we did the hard sit down of looking at all of our current programs. And, I don't know if Chris, you're the one that told me, but it's like, if people aren't showing up or people aren't asking for it, don't keep doing it. And so, we really evaluated those things. And so we kind of sunset some programs so that we could, hopefully sunrise some others. And so we're really just trying to tailor the thing, our programs, our initiatives. Another huge focus for us right now is we're trying to reach students early. So we want them to know who we are from the time that they step on campus, maybe even potentially before they do. So if they've not yet committed to Southeastern. So we really just want them to, we want to touch them early. we want them to understand the benefits of staying connected post-graduation. Another thing that we're really trying to work on is understanding our alumni. So we're actually about to kick off a survey to find out, how do our alums want to be communicated with? What do they want to see? I think that the better we understand them, the better we can support them, the more valuable and successful our program will be in the future. And I recognize, that will continue to change and it will evolve. But like Gina said, 2025 is a really big year for Southeastern. It's our centennial year. And so we really wanted to capitalize on that moment and make that an opportunity to create meaningful opportunities for alums to connect, for us to connect with them, find out what's important to them. And so I hope that this year, this big monumental year, will be an opportunity for us to really gain momentum.
Recap on the strategic plan. So we went through a whole process, so folks that have been through this with us before, we've done many of these with the clients. We worked through a strategic planning task force. We created values, vision, mission. But the key piece of it is identifying priorities. And we talked about a half a dozen, Malayne, along the way, but you settled on 3, right? So remind our audience again. So early engagement was the first one. For that students and young alumni, that whole swash right in there, right?
Yes, correct.
So go ahead, the other 2.
The other 2 are affinity groups, to include like our regional groups, and then also what we what we call generational engagement. And that actually took a while to come up with, believe it or not. But we felt like we were kind of losing people along the way. So as people evolve and enter new life cycles and or different life stages, we kind of felt like they were falling off. So we really wanted to focus on creating initiatives or programs that appealed to all of our life cycles in every life stage. So that's going to be a huge focus for us, this year and over the next 5 years. But I will say the strategic planning process, I was quite nervous about it, and then creating the committee and how is that going to work? We went through a huge change a couple of years ago where we eliminated membership dues. And so we went to a more philanthropic model. And so, a small community, it wasn't received all that well. And so we recognized that we needed to do, a lot of work in that area and try to bring those folks back. And so I think that with our 3 priorities, we'll be able to accomplish that. But what an incredible experience in creating that strategic plan, because it really gave us a true trajectory on where we're trying to go, over the next 5 to 10 years.
There's a little past, present, future within your plan. I mean, you have the honoring that past generations, what you're doing now, and then the future of your early engagement. I think you guys did a great job. I mean, we facilitate, but ultimately it's your work, and you guys did a great job doing that. So kudos.
Yeah, great experience. I would recommend it to anybody, because it really, I think it took months, of course, it took us time, but having that strategic task force or committee, it was actually very cool to experience. I thought, goodness, there's about 16 of us on there. And so I was like, I feel like it's going to be all over the board, and how are we going to narrow this down and really come to a set of priorities that everybody thinks, is what we should be focused on over the next, couple of years. But it was incredible to see the alignment amongst the group. And everybody's a part of it now. And they feel like they contributed to it.
Yeah, good stuff.
Fun.
Well, so Gina, starting with you, let's talk a little bit about the future and what success looks like. So you're both sort of imagining those priorities, Malayne, that you were talking about. Gina, you articulated a number of them, including opportunities around your 125th. How are you thinking about what success looks like?
Yeah, that's a great question, Ryan. As you and I have discussed before, this Office of Constituent Engagement here at U of P is new. We're just about a year old, and it combines alumni and parent engagement with our annual leadership giving space. And so that's a new model for us here at UP, and one that was, met with some resistance, because again, it goes back to what our other colleagues have said. The only time you want to hear from me is when you're asking for money. And so being able to really track that success of, I've engaged an alum, we've built a strong relationship, that when I call or somebody calls in our community and that alum picks up the phone, they're ready to invest, they're ready for to give their time, they're ready to give their expertise. Like, there's no hesitation to say, yes, I'm on board, how can I help you, in all the different ways. And that's going to be really hard to track. But we'll do our best to do it. So we're still trying to figure a lot of that out. We'll also be, launching the public phase of a comprehensive campaign around the same time as the anniversary celebration. So again, being able to, we can easily track who's showing up to events and who's purchasing gear from us, and who's, coming to buying athletic tickets and coming to the sporting activities. But it's really trying to figure out what that success rate and defining the success, I should say, in when you have a one-on-one conversation with an alum. And what does that do? On the advancement side, we always talk about moving the needle towards a donation, but how are we moving the needle towards engagement? And how are we getting them to stay in that investment of time and expertise space? And again, giving back to our students and giving back to our faculty and all of those types of pieces. So I don't have a great answer right now as to what our success looks like, except that when an alum sees me calling, they pick up the phone and want to talk, no matter what. So whatever the ask or the conversation is going to be.
Awesome. That is good. You do want them to pick up the phone, at least at a higher rate, I feel like.
Yes, exactly.
Still going to be a lot of right to voicemails.
Yeah.
Malayne, what does success look like for you?
Well, I think Gina's answer was good. For me, I think sometimes I get very wrapped up in our numbers and who's showing up to alumni specific events, things that we're doing. And you kind of get lost in that, and that's like becomes your main focus. I know it has for me, and how many donations are rolling in post event, and and throughout the year. But I think it's much deeper than that, and it goes beyond that. So I think part of the success for me is the follow up, kind of like Gina's saying. It's the follow up after those events. How am I connecting with them? Are they receptive to it? I think ultimately in the long run, success, for our program is really just a community that continues to grow and continues to get stronger, where alums have the opportunity to connect with one another and also connect with the university, giving back where it's most meaningful to them, and really just creating that sense of pride that goes beyond graduation. We have tried, on the topic of tracking, we have really tried to incorporate all of our campus partners. So just because we're not hosting the event doesn't mean that alums aren't showing up. Yep. And so we've tried to be very intentional about reaching out and knowing what's on the calendar, know what events are happening on campus that are bringing alums back. And we're trying to track that in our system. I think it'll help us better communicate with them in the long run. We'll know what means most to them, where they're spending their time, whether or not it's with us, specifically something that we're putting on, but maybe it's something in the College of Business or the College of Science and Technology.
Part of the reason we do that strategic planning process with so many people involved, we've talked, sort of the premise of it is alumni engagement happens everywhere across the university, right? Faculty bring in their former students to come speak to their class every day, and on and on and on. Every school unit and so on are bringing in alumni in some capacity. And what you're talking about, Malayne, now is capturing all that activity and measuring the breadth of that, whether you control it or not at the center. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah, you got to do both. Well, that is a lot of awesome thoughts.
Good stuff, both. Thank you.
Yeah, really appreciate you both, Gina and Malayne. Thank you so much for being on the show and talking about what success looks like and how you're thinking about the future. We're grateful for your time and for being part of our community.
Thank you both. Happy holidays. I hope y'all all enjoy your break.
Yeah, you too.
Happy
Thanks for doing
holidays.
this. Appreciate it.
All right, Chris. So it's the end, 2024, last show of the year. You know, Ebenezer Scrooge, changed man after all of this, and he's going to start donating, start spending more time with friends and family, going to do things differently. How are you thinking about CMAC in 2025? Anything you're going to do differently here or what?
I'll talk about CMAC in a second, but you know, you remember that there's been lots of versions of the Christmas Carol, including one of my favorites, which is Scrooged with Bill Murray. Have you ever seen that one? Where
I feel like I have, but it's been a long time.
He's a TV producer, and it's the whole Christmas Carol theme. Same thing goes Christmas past, present, future, and he comes back to the present, and the end scene is where the Scrooge character flips the coin out the window to go buy the goose in the next block, whatever. And Bill Murray comes in and catches the coin and talks to the camera directly and says how his life has changed and how this Christmas spirit should last all year round. And it's really it's a great movie. If you haven't seen it,
I love Bill Murray too. Yeah.
Bill Murray is hysterical in it. And there's a whole bunch of really cool people in it. A lot of fun. Scrooge, I see Maria knows it. Over in Ireland, Maria knows Scrooge. So that's great. It's just a really warm, fuzzy message at the end, but it makes me think about a little bit, Ryan, in our kind of corny way, as we Christmas carolize our alumni engagement work here, is what the work that William & Mary is doing around the 5 T's, right? We all know the 3: time, talent, treasure. But they've talked about 2 others about, well, actually they have 6, right? They have a 6th one too, but the other 2 that I always add in are time, talent, treasure, ties, and testimony. So people, our networks and our words about, you know, and they throw in trust as their 6th T. So I just think that's a good message for us, of that we can think about our work leading to outcomes. It's the time, talent, treasure, ties, testimony, and building that trust and building that community. That's the piece that if I had to catch the coin out of the air and give a message to the audience, I would say, let's focus on that in 25. In terms of the business, CMAC, we have some really cool things cooking. We have some new practice areas that we've stood up, and we're rolling out a whole metrics division to help schools analyze and do their metric work for them. We're finishing our first pilot now. So a cool section coming out there. Melissa Shipke leading that up. We have Howard Heavner and Adam Compton launching an alumni engagement. An annual giving practice area for us. We're calling it annual giving because that's what everybody calls it, but it's really a different term and concept now that we're seeing. And they're
part of the pipeline examination process, but it does kind of have its own corner within our space, right?
100% agreed. And those are 2 perfect guys to be thinking about. And of course, we have the core business that we'll always keep. We're the GPS for alumni engagement. So we'll still keep doing the alumni engagement work we're doing, and our team of 12 now, and continuing to grow and deliver some really good stuff. So I'm looking forward to the 2025 coming.
Yeah, me too. Looking forward to it as well. We've got a great first guest when we're back on January 17th. Our good friend Ashley Budd from Cornell University is going to be here, talk about all things advancement marketing, including her new book she co-wrote called Mailed It. I've seen a lot of great reviews on LinkedIn by people who have been checking out Mailed It. So we're excited to talk with our friend Ashley. But let's wrap it up there. Thank you so much, Chris.
Pretty good. 3 minutes over, Ryan. That was pretty good.
Yeah, you know what? We're going to take those 3 minutes with pride. Thanks, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you again in 2025. Take care.
All right. Happy holidays, everybody.